On this episode 27 of the Fantasy Flyer, Derek and Taylor are going to preview all of the Week 14 games. We're going to play another round of host v host. We're going to give you 5 fantasy flyers that you can trust based on the matchups this week going into Week 14. And we're also going to give you a little bit of an insight into Week 15 and the playoffs. Episode 27 of the Fantasy Flyer starts right now. And welcome to episode 27 of the Fantasy Flyer. My name is Derek. We're back again. It's late on Saturday. Normally we do this on Friday. Things happen. We're here on Saturday. I've had a
Shifting it
long day of
around.
Christmas. Yeah, that's right. I've had a long day of Christmas shopping, so I'm half asleep as it is. So if you see me yawn, look into my eyes. Christmas shopping is draining. It was fun. It was a good time. Crowds drained me. It was just I'm on a little bit of a downhill, but we're okay. We got myself some Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, there you go.
Folks, that's right. If you live in Massachusetts, this is the elixir. I live in New
Yes.
York. Don't care. Still stealing your elixir. So I'm gonna roll with this. But it is episode 27. We're gonna preview week 14. We're gonna go through host v host. We're gonna give you 5 fantasy flyers the way we always do it on every Friday, Saturday night. But we're gonna start off with our 9. There's like 6 teams on bye, which is absolutely wonderful. If you're here watching this on YouTube, give us a like, give us a subscribe, share it somewhere, tell your friends about us. We appreciate it. We just try and have some nice, good football talk. Taylor, I'm going to let you, Mr. Guru of the 9, I'm going to let you take it from the dojo. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, so reminder on teams that are on bye: Atlanta Falcons, Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers, Indianapolis Colts, New Orleans Saints, and Washington Commanders. All right, so we spoke about some of these guys. So updates for Arizona: Rondale Moore with his groin injury is out. Greg Dortch not on the injury report, so he should fill that role, which he has done well with. That being said, when he has done well with that role, he did so when they did not have both Hopkins and Hollywood Brown. So we'll have to see how that impacts how successful he is in this particular game. But he's had success in this role in the past, so he could be okay. But now that they have the other guys healthy, he may not be as involved. Baltimore, Lamar Jackson. His knee injury, he's listed as doubtful and did not practice Friday. So he's trending in the wrong direction. And my gut is saying that Huntley is probably going to start. So I would not bake on Jackson, and I would get some sort of backup plan in place if you haven't already, and keep an eye on that going into this weekend. Carolina, Deontay Foreman, who we mentioned on the previous show this week, was not on the injury report, so that's good news. Cincinnati, Hayden Hurst with his calf injury is out. Joe Mixon has cleared concussion protocols and is on track to play this weekend. He was not on the injury report. Keep an eye, make sure nothing changes with concussions. Obviously that can change, but it looks like he is.
Adios, goodbye, amigo, friends.
Didn't mean to hit that, but sure.
Yeah.
I'm half asleep, so there you go. I'm not really half asleep, but that was just a mistake. Continue, sorry.
No, adding a little excitement here, throwing me off my game. Cleveland, Amari Cooper with his hip injury. Apparently he injured it in Thursday's practice, which is not ideal. I didn't see anything as to whether he did or did not practice Friday. So keep an eye on that. Obviously the fact that he Yeah, injured that during practice halfway through or more than halfway through the week is not great. David Njoku not on the injury report, so that's good news. Dallas, James Washington coming off of IR. Looks like he is likely to make his debut this weekend versus Houston. Not sure that really means too much. They have plenty of other pieces that are doing fine. I would imagine his first game back, they may take it a little easy with him if he does anything at all, really. I don't know if you had any more insight being the Dallas fan, but
he's been in team meetings for the past like 6 weeks.
right.
So, between his experience and how the team generally works, he's sneaky this week. I don't think he's going to probably see more than like, I want to say 50% of snaps. I
Yeah.
think he takes some from Noah. I even think he takes a little bit from Gallup. Little. Smidgen. But like 40 to 50% snap. But he's sneaky because we haven't seen him in the offense. As far as who they're playing, he couldn't really have much more of a better opportunity to start up. I think there's better opportunities because the Texans are only 18th or 19th versus wide receivers, so there's room to be better. But the team in general isn't a massively amazing defense, the Texans. So I would take, like, for a DFS, I'm actually kind of curious as to what his price is for a DFS slate. I'm actually going to look that up.
It's got to be pretty close to the minimum.
I don't think it's quite the minimum.
Well, no, but within like, I don't know, 1,500.
It's only 51,000 entries for the 147 or 142,000. Let's see. Let me log it up right now because it's interesting to me that Noah Brown is 3,500. You were right. He's the minimum 3,000. So if he gets a touchdown, you're going to bank on, like, that's going to be a great tournament play. So don't hate it. That's what I'll say about it. You obviously are still looking at Gallup and Schultz being the top two targets for Dak. So, and then in this case, Tony Pollard too, who should be, like, Malik Davis should be playing by the fourth quarter of this game because Zeke and Pollard should have done their work and the game should be well in hand.
Yeah.
Does that mean he won't throw 3 interceptions to Jalen Petrie? Absolutely not. But
yeah, I mean, yeah, I was just reading something. It looks like they are going to probably limit his snaps. So yeah, I was thinking even before I read that somewhere in the 33-ish percent snap count. So yeah, I would definitely agree. Definitely not more than 50% snap count.
Right.
Possibly worth a flyer since he is so cheap, but definitely not something you're going to be doing in your day-to-day fantasy lineups.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to Denver, Cortland Sutton with his hamstring injury is officially out. And then KJ Hamler with the hamstring injury was actually placed on IR after suffering a setback in practices. So Jerry Jeudy, who is not on the injury report, and Dulcich and Kendall Hinton, I believe. Those are the guys you'll be looking at from a receiving perspective for a really crappy team that you probably don't want to play any of. And they're up against Baltimore, which I guess is not a phenomenal defense, middle of the road. So you might get something out of one of them, but
wait, who's up against Baltimore?
Is it Denver, or did I mix that up? That was last week.
No, yeah, Denver was the what? Where do you what?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, they're playing the Chiefs.
The guy is drunk, but there he goes.
No, okay, so let's try that again. I mean, it's not a much better team, like, defensively, as far
Right.
as like your matchup. It's the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Denver versus the Chiefs. So running,
Yeah.
no. Passing, maybe, but probably not because Russell Wilson's not Russell Wilson. So
Yeah. No, Denver played the Ravens last week. So yeah, I mixed that up.
That absolutely horrible game.
Yes. Moving on to Detroit, Khalif Raymond with an illness. He's listed as questionable. He did return to practice Friday in a limited capacity after missing Wednesday and Thursday, so he's trending in the right direction. DeAndre Swift, not on the injury report, so that's good news, especially after what we saw last week. Houston, reminder that Davis Mills looks like he should be returning to the starting role versus Dallas this week. Brandon Cooks, calf, Nico Collins' foot are both listed as out. So as far as DFS, you may be able to find some cheap value flyer options on the team, but against a good Dallas defense with Davis Mills, who has struggled this season, not sure there's too much I want there.
You're gonna have they have to, somebody has to have catches there.
Oh yeah, right. So yeah, there's definitely
So-
somebody you're gonna want as a flyer if you want to mix it up in a tournament or something.
Yeah, tournament for sure.
Yeah.
You're gonna stay away from cash games. There's no dynasty value here.
No.
You're absolutely dart throwing anything like below like 14 team. You're dart throwing.
Yeah,
So,
Chris Moore,
and for
Philip
those 14
Dorsett.
yeah, for those 14 teams at this point, 6 of them are out of it. So you should have somebody else.
Yeah. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, we talked about this the previous show, but more information on this with his sprained left big toe. He is still listed as questionable. He didn't practice Wednesday and Thursday, but did return to practice Friday in a limited capacity, and after practice said it felt good. So trending in the right direction. Zay Jones with his chest injury, still listed as questionable, was limited Wednesday. I didn't see an update about his practice capacity Thursday and Friday. I would assume it was still limited. But I mean, just a reminder, this was the case last week and he did play through it. Granted, he only caught 2 of his 7 targets. So not sure how much I want to use him. That being said, he had 7 targets. He's been getting consistent targets. And when he's catching them, comes through. So he could have a good game.
Also, spoiler alert before you switch teams, they released Darrell Henderson today. They waived him. So
Oh,
now I can actually hit the button that I hit earlier, and I will once I find it.
Adios, goodbye, amigo friends.
Play it again. All right, continue on.
Kansas City, Kadarius Toney out again, hamstring. Los Angeles Chargers.
Get some help.
Mike Williams. Yeah, for real. Mike Williams, not on the injury report. We spoke about this in the previous show that they brought him back too soon with his ankle injury. This is more of the timetable we were expecting. So hopefully he should be good to go this week and play a solid snap count and actually be like used well enough. But if you, I don't know, personally, if I have other options that I would say are comparable, he's more of a flex play for me this week. And if I have somebody that I feel better about or has a higher ceiling, I may give it a week and see how he does. Yeah.
I like him this week.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying I don't like him, but coming off the injury, we saw what happened the first time they tried to bring him back. I'm a tad hesitant.
This team can't afford to be hesitant.
That's they need the wins.
They need to go 9-7.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be 9-7. They're 6-6.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I don't think they're going to be hesitant with Mike. I think he's going to play 85 to 90% of these snaps. He's definitely the top 2 option here.
Oh yeah.
And they need to match wide receiver cores with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill as best they can. They won't because of the speed differential, but they need to throw out like that's just point blank. You can't afford to.
Right. I mean that's
flail at this point. I'm gonna look up the AFC playoff picture. I'm pretty sure they're still like out of it. They're either out of it or because they are. Oh, that's not updated, so I'm not going to use that. That was really good. It still had the Bills at 6-1. I was like, yeah, that's up to date. Week 7, that'd be great. Absolutely ideal. Keep going. I'll update you with this once it loads.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is even if they if they have him out there a ton of snaps, like if his ankle isn't feeling great, he's not going to be able to perform at the highest of capacity. So I guess that's my hesitation.
They're
but-
right there. They're 6-6, 7-5 as the Jets are last in the AFC playoff picture. So
Okay.
they need to, and the Dolphins are 6th. So they can't afford to lose this game, really.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully big things from Mike, but we'll see. Moving on to their opponent, Miami, Jalen Waddle, Tua not on the injury report, which is good news. Although, I mean, they both play well. Tua got injured last week. Jalen came in injured, didn't have a great game, so we'll have to see how that turns out. New England, Jacoby Myers, concussion, he is out. Damian Harris, thigh is doubtful. So Ramondre obviously continue to fire him up. Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar have gotten much better usage when Jacoby is out. I don't know. I mean, Kendrick Bourne, yeah, he's sort of in there. Hunter Henry is probably, so I would say Parker, Aguilar, Henry are the top 3 options with Myers out. And then some of the other guys sprinkled in there, Thornton. Moving on to the Giants, Saquon Barkley has some sort of neck injury. He is listed as questionable. He was limited all week, and they put it as expected to be a quote unquote true game time decision for Sunday's 1 p.m. That is Eastern time kickoff against the Eagles. So that could be a big blow not only to this team but to your fantasy team. So keep an eye on that and grab Matt Breida if you can. Pittsburgh, Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson no longer on the injury report. Good news for them. San Francisco, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel no longer on the injury report. Also good news. Seattle, Kenneth Walker with his ankle injury is still listed as questionable. Didn't practice Wednesday through Friday and is considered a game time decision. We talked about this a little bit with our good friend ZG. He pointed out, and I think we all agreed that Travis Homer would be the presumed starter if Walker is out. And the good news there is he was questionable when we had that show. He is now no longer on the injury report. So I would snag Travis Homer if you're a Walker owner or if you need a running back. The other guy that they have that's healthy is Tony Jones Jr. DJ Dallas is still listed as questionable, also didn't practice Wednesday through Friday, and also a game time decision.
I am going to err on the side of caution and say both will be out. They've elevated Godwin Igwebuike from their practice
Oh, they did.
squad. Yep.
Okay, I was looking for that news.
That would give them Homer, Jones, and Igwebuike. So I would imagine both would be out. That'd be where I'd be. Because usually about midday Saturday, when they start getting the feeling things are going to hit the wall, they will call someone up. So
yeah, if they elevated someone,
but that would scream Travis Homer. Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. DK Metcalf apparently has a hip injury, is listed as questionable, limited Thursday, and sat out Friday. So they did designate Friday as a rest day, and then according to Carroll, the questionable designation is precautionary, and DK is in line to play, so he should be good to go.
I don't know. I can 50-50 that. They elevated Laquan Treadwell from their practice squad today as well.
Oh, geez, they're elevating everybody.
I mean,
that's interesting.
The only way that would work is if you have holes. I don't know who else. Either that or it's Disley, which again, that's kind of one of those situations where you watch it because if Disley's out, Noah Fant is probably about a must start.
Yeah. The next piece of news here, Will Disley, calf, was listed as questionable, did practice Thursday and Friday in a limited capacity. And Pete Carroll said about Disley that he is ready to play this weekend. So I guess the thing that we should note here is Carroll is known for being very optimistic and not necessarily being realistic. So definitely keep an eye on these Seattle players, especially with all these elevations from the practice squad. Moving on to the Bucks, Leonard Fournette, foot injury, designated questionable, was limited Thursday, sat out Friday. However, head coach Todd Boyle said Friday he wasn't concerned about Fournette's injury. So that's a little funky. I guess maybe Friday being a rest day. He's in more or less a timeshare with White, but considering the fact that White is healthy and kind of had a good end to that game, they may do like a 60-40 or 70-30, just giving Leonard a little bit of rest there. And then finally, Tennessee, Treylon Burks is out again with his concussion. Hassan Haskins' hip, listed as questionable, was limited all week, and Tannehill not on the injury report. That is it for the 9.
Okay, well let's muddy the waters a little more. How about that?
What do you got?
Where did I just see it? Going back to what we said about the call-ups for Seattle 2 hours ago, Underdog Fantasy, and specifically Jeremy Fowler of ESPN said DJ Dallas is considered a long shot, end quote, for Sunday's Week 14 game against the Panthers. Kenneth Walker is closer to 50-50.
Okay.
So you still have to sit someone else. You called up 2 people. So I don't know. And also Matt Breida could see an uptick in opportunities again from Underdog Sports. Saquon Barkley is expected to be game time decision. Even if he does play, it is more likely he will see less snaps as a precautionary measure. And Breida would be the what's the word?
Change
I'm
of
paraphrasing.
pace?
Not the change. No, he would be the expected uptick, the beneficiary. That's
Yes.
the word. I was paraphrasing the rest because it's a whole paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Gotcha.
Because everybody here can
Yeah.
read for them. But
Breida, perfectly capable running back. Obviously not as talented as Barkley, but good decent pass catcher. Can do fine in the role. Obviously just doesn't have the burst that Barkley has.
Going way back to when he was in, I believe it was San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
He had like a few good games in there.
Yeah, he kind of took over as the more or less starter at some point.
So, yeah. But good 9 segment. Real quick, we'll review Thursday night football game because I didn't watch it. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, it's 16-3. And then we had a repeat of what happened on Monday night.
Yeah.
In the last 5 minutes, the team made a 2-touchdown comeback. Rams won this 17-16. Baker Mayfield had a 98-yard drive in like just under 2 minutes to finish out this game. If you've been under a rock for the last 2 days, that's how that game ended. But I've seen a lot of overhyping of Baker, and I don't want to sit here and say Baker can't do that normally or regularly, but he hasn't done that regularly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm playing it safe when it comes to Baker. He's in my bottom 10 of quarterbacks you still don't want on a fantasy basis. Not don't want as in like he won't put up 15 or 17 points. Like he can. He did in this game. Before that 98-yard drive, I told you this before the show, he had 132 yards on like 18 passes.
Right.
Or 28 passes, excuse me. It's just bad. It's just not good. And this is the same, and you can't even blame the defense for being great because then all of a sudden he goes out and does this. Why didn't you do this before?
Yeah, that's what's kind of odd is like, I mean, A, he didn't know the offense very well. B, he didn't practice with the ones. Like, was this just a chip on my shoulder, a lot of sort of under pressure, stepping into the moment type of thing? Like you said, most of the game he wasn't that great, which to a degree you could say is understandable with all of these, like this particular situation. But yeah, I agree. Don't temper your expectations. We know Baker has talent, but at the same time he has struggled. So
I mean, struggle is being nice.
Yeah.
But he got outplayed by a former XFL quarterback. But that being said, there's got to be some potential in there. There's interesting. He goes to the Rams now. The Rams pick him up after they had Baker last year for however long. Well, the whole year, obviously, until he had his torn ACL in the Super Bowl. So, hey, OBJ got himself a ring. So, all right, whatever. I think on the flip side of this, we have to really start talking critically of the Raiders defense. They came out and pressed man for like 3/4 of that last drive when they have like limited timeouts or limited time in general, maybe not timeouts, but they played man, they didn't zone, they shoved some people and like it wasn't good. Like I don't know. That's a defensive coordinator problem. That's not a player problem, and I get that.
Yeah.
They didn't lock down. And Baker had some great throws. Let's call a spade a spade. He put the ball where he needed to consecutively, actually. One to Skoranek, the touchdown to Jefferson to end the drive, to end the
Yeah,
game.
those were some great passes.
Great passes. But this Raiders defense can't keep with nobody. Imagine if Devontae Adams played them instead of being on their team. We talked about him on Tuesday. I said this to you as well in the pre-show, and I think it's only fair that we bring up. There was a Ben Skoranek sighting. He done well. He done well. 7 for 89 on 8 targets. Nice, very nice. Who else? Tutu Atwell led the team with 9 targets. Interesting. He also had 5 catches for 50 yards.
50.
Yep. 50. Van Jefferson, 4 targets, had only 2 catches, 44 yards, and a touchdown. Kind of bites because I had him in one of my bets for a touchdown. I also had Josh Jacobson a touchdown in that bet, and I still lost because they both scored in this game, and I was very angry. I was like, that figures. Cam Akers, 12 carries, 42 yards, and a touchdown. Tyler Higbee only with 3 targets. Not liking the Tyler Higbees. I don't know. He should be probably one of the most dependable. Here we go. Hey, eventually I'll go to school again. He should be one of the most dependable options that they have. And it's just like the 3rd game in a row since Stafford left where they just haven't, like, nobody's looking at Tyler Higbee. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is he just out there running routes and not putting his soul into it because he knows this team looks atrocious for the most part? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We should look at his route numbers and see if he's actually just doing more blocking. Because he's not a viable fantasy option.
Not at this point. Baker Mayfield doesn't make that seem better despite his game-winning drive. Mayfield, 22 for 35, had a touchdown, 230 yards. For the Raiders offense, which wasn't horrible until it was. Josh Jacobs left with a hand injury in this game. He had 99 yards on 27 carries, had a touchdown. Also had 2 catches for 15 yards. The ball wasn't really spread around. I mean, it's been that way most of the season. Devontae Adams had 7 targets. Carr only threw it 20 times. So he had a 33% target share, 35% target share. But the defense, if they can't stop anybody, it doesn't really matter what Devontae Adams does. Adams, 3 catches on those 7 targets for 71 yards. Mac Hollins and Amir Abdullah each had a pair of catches along with Josh Jacobs. Hollins had 4 targets. No one else had more than 2. It was meh. Like the offense in this game should have been able to have been meh. And the defense was I don't even know how to describe it. Like the defense is not doing. Hold on. Actually, I do. I have a very, very perfect way to describe the defense. Hold on 1 second. There it is. Anything else for you from this one?
It was a pretty ho-hum game. Like,
yeah.
The Raiders came out, they got that touchdown and a field goal in the first quarter, and then they kind of didn't do too much. And then on the flip side, the Rams didn't do too much until the last quarter. So, like, I don't know what that really says about these two teams other than the fact that they both really stink.
And they do.
Yeah.
It's the worst. It was, their records are like they're both virtually out of the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, the Raiders had like a chance to claw back, but it's not looking good.
I mean, statistically they did, I guess, but
Right.
it's hard to.
Yeah, I mean, to your point of, or not necessarily to your point, but like you brought up the fact that Baker had what, like 130-ish yards.
132 before that final
Yeah.
drive.
And
That
then,
says more about the defense than him, I think. Like, you
yeah,
did fine, then you did horrible.
right.
Baker did horrible and then did really good. And
But-
those two coincide so badly.
So the interesting thing is like Carr had 137 the entire game, and like you said, only threw 20, only completed 11 of those, so a 55% completion rate, and unfortunately had 2 interceptions. So Carr was not all that different than Mayfield until that final drive.
Still wasn't. Yeah, no. Yeah, that's enough out of that one. All right, so we're gonna move on to the week 14 preview. We'll get the easy one out of the way. Got about 10 minutes till our first break. Maybe we can get through 2 of these. Texans 1-10-1 at Dallas 9-3. This is a 1 o'clock game. 1 o'clock, yes. Hope so. Because I put it at the start of this when we normally do our 1 o'clock games. Dallas is 17-point favorites.
Yeah,
I think that's the highest spread.
I think so. Yeah.
We saw even Kansas City versus Bryce Perkins and the Rams was 15. That just tells you how much, like, yeah, over unders 44, which if my math is correct, it would be like 13 or 14 to 30 or 31. So, yeah. I might make a bet on that one. Dallas is first in sacks, second in pressures, second in quarterback hits, second least amount of touchdowns given up at 18 for the year. Welcome back, Davis. Here's a pile of crap you get to deal with. Imagine leaving work, like you're out of work for a vacation, and you come back and they did nothing while you were gone. And then all of a sudden you're handed all the work that should have been done while you were gone. That's the equivalent to this. Cowboys should once again, I think they should have a big lead somewhere in this game. I don't think there's a whole heck of a lot to talk about with this. I don't think, like, we didn't have a lot to talk about when they faced the Colts, and it looked like we might. And then there was the fourth quarter in which it went very badly for the Colts. This game could be the same way. If the Texans play their best and the Cowboys play the worst, it could be a close game. That's the way I look at this one. So, Dameon Pierce may be okay. We saw Dallas give up yards to the rush. There's really no one else in Houston who's an offensive threat. The Cowboys will be without Anthony Brown for the rest of the season, who is one of their good cornerbacks. He tore his Achilles, something like that. He's gone for the season. That's what I know. Left the game during versus the Colts in like the third quarter. Was quickly announced after the game he's gone. So we need somebody else out there. But it's still Philip Dorsett, Chris Moore, Amari Rodgers, who did play last week, had 26% of snaps. Probably we'll see closer to 40 or 50 this week with no Cooks, no Nico Collins. So dart throw your way there if you really feel like you want to be nauseous tonight. This is part of the easiest part of Dallas' schedule. Colts last week, Texans this week, Jaguars is probably their toughest of those 3 teams, and that's next week. So start Pierce, start whoever you want on Dallas. Tony Pollard should probably be option number 1. This team, Houston's horrible against the run. We know that. Honestly, I'd be surprised if Dak threw it more than 25 or 28 times in this game. Because run the ball, run, burn the clock, score, let the defense sack the living lights out of Davis Mills, get the ball back, do it again. Yeah, I'm sitting all of Houston except for Dameon Pierce. It's the only halfway viable.
Yeah.
And honestly, he probably will do okay. Jonathan Taylor had 82 yards last week, had a couple catches, was well on his way until he was literally game played out of the script, or, he was out of the plan because of the game script. He was on his way to 110, 120 yards.
That's my only concern is being basically,
Game script.
game scripted out. But
Well, he's still got pass catching. So, and he's been okay in that. Rex Burkhead's nowhere around anymore. There's only Dare Ogunbowale. I said his name. I'm so sorry. I just botched his name. Dare Ogunbowale.
Awungabal? No, I'm saying it wrong too.
Yeah, no.
That's a tough
we're
one. Dare
Right.
Awumbo. Yep. Just gonna let it
Yeah.
go.
Okay. That's
Agumbawale.
That's wrong. You're not doing good so far.
I think that's it. Agumbawale.
yeah, all right. Don't sneeze at me. Yeah, Dallas wins this one. We don't have anything else about this. Next game, Vikings 10-2 at the Lions 5-7. Detroit is somehow the 2-point favorite here. Over under a 51.5. I don't get that, and I don't agree with it. I don't see. No. Detroit's defense has been a little bit more difficult to deal with, so I guess points to that. But this is still like a top 10 offense and a top 15 defense. So I don't know. Maybe they see something we don't. I will be taking the Vikings plus like 5 or 6 on this one, or minus 5 or 6. I'll take the easy. I'll take the the easy money on that one. I think. Just because Detroit's 4-1 doesn't mean they're going to be 5-1 versus a very good team. Vikings aren't the Eagles or the Bills or the Chiefs or the Cowboys or any of that stuff, but they're still very good. Unless there's an injury I don't know on the defensive side. They just activated Cam Dantzler, who is a very good cornerback. He will be playing. So I don't think Amon-Ra St. Brown should be avoided, but keep that in the back of your mind. They've allowed less yards. Detroit has allowed less yards per completion and less rushing first downs, tune of about 2 rushing first downs per game. Rushing was their problem for the first down, all of the season. They're starting to tighten up a little bit. Vikings are still very good in just about every manner. Dalvin Cook, yeah, I need to go to sleep, man. Dalvin Cook is a must start given the number of yards Detroit generally gives up on the ground. They went from 156 to 130 over their last 3. Their season average is 156, which actually was like 165 before those last 3 games. So Jefferson and Hawkinson, interesting pieces. Hawkinson with the revenge game narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who they can.
Revenge game or thank you for letting me go.
Well, I mean, the difference is one's going to make the playoffs.
Right.
So it's the latter. Yeah, one should be the target defensively. A lot of your tools make them throw to someone whose name isn't Justin Jefferson. Should see a hair more Jameson Williams, and hopefully more DeAndre Swift.
Mm-hmm.
Swift peek his head out of the hole. I said Jack in a box in it, and I hope he does it again. He's very good. Jameson Williams could be a very nice addition to this receiving core. DJ Chark is not a bad option here. I'm going to start Cook. I'm going to start Hawkinson. I think Hawkinson's going to have a good one here. I don't know why. I think he's going to get kind of angry at his old team, not because they let him go, not because in a better situation, but he wants to show him up. Classic revenge game. Not a fan of Jamal Williams. Oh, Jesus Christ, man. I'm gonna start mixing up Swift and Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift and Jamal Swift, DeAndre Williams, and it's not gonna go well. Give me Vikings in this one. Anything else from you? Vikings.
No, yeah. I was also like I said, surprised by this in favor of Detroit spread. But I love this over under. Both defenses have proven to sort of not be the best, and they both can put up points. So
wide receivers against Minnesota. It's the run game they usually are more tight on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at their latest rankings, and honestly, they're in the lower third for all of.
I said usually.
Yeah.
I said usually. Let's see where they are last 3, just because I'm interested. Do you have it in front of you? I have 105.3 over the last 3, which is their season is 115.1.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just looking at individual like Amon-Ra's opponent rankings versus stuff like that.
He should really all set this week.
Oh yeah.
Just saying, like just gonna actually How many passing yards do they give in a passing defense? Let's see. Opponent passing yards per game. I know we only have like 50 seconds left, so I have to like hurry up and last three. Oh, sweet mother of Jesus. They are last in the league. Minnesota is 345 yards per game.
Okay, yeah, I had him at second to last, so yeah.
Yeah, the only problem, well, I'm over the last three, but the only problem that I see with that is that Jared Goff hardly throws above 300 yards a game. Like his most yards in any game was 340 last week. Other than that, I think every other game is below 300. So hard to throw for over 300 or hard to give away over 300 if the quarterback's not throwing for it. So
Yeah.
But yeah, that's gonna wrap up part one. We're gonna go back. I'm gonna grab my ginger ale. I don't know, something to keep me awake. I'll slap myself in the face, dunk my head in the bucket of apples, whatever it is. Taylor, sign us off, would you please?
All right, y'all. We'll see you in the flip.
Welcome back. It's part two of the Fantasy Flyer. Derek's in here welcoming you with his Donnie Thornberry. If you don't know about that, I think I've said this like 4 times before, but if you don't know about who Donnie Thornberry is, you need to go Google that and watch the first video. Next game on the Week 14 preview: Jets 7-5 at the Bills 9-3. Buffalo 10-point favorites, over under 43. The sports books have not learned their lesson from the Jets in their last victory over Buffalo. It is a bit of a replay, but it's in Buffalo this time. So redemption galore for Josh Allen. I would hope. I don't think Buffalo can afford to keep dropping games like that. They've only lost 3 games this year, and one was to the Dolphins. Get it? One was to the Jets. Don't get it. I don't even know who their third loss was. Who was their third loss?
It
Wasn't the Chiefs?
was Vikings.
Okay, that's right. I forgot about that. And that was, they at least were close until well into overtime there.
Right.
There's no Von Miller for the Buffalo Bills. They're steady, but they also face a different passing offense, which is the
Right.
one game's a little bit different now. Mike White throwing for 40 or 50 could lead to more problems, but if it doesn't lead to more problems for the Jets, it's going to lead to more problems for the Bills. You can throw it 50 times, and if he's good for 27 or 28 of them, he's gonna have some touchdowns there. He keep up the momentum. Zonovan Knight is an intriguing option, especially for deeper leagues. 6 teams are on bye. Cordero Patterson is on bye. Tyler Algier is on bye. Who's the other team that just Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson? They're both on bye. I don't even know who the other 4 teams are off the top of my head, but there's some good running backs on bye. I remember thinking it. That's all I got. Too tired.
JT, Aaron Jones, DJ, yeah.
Colts,
Kamara.
Yeah, there you go. So there's an opportunity there for a sneaky Zonovan Knight. Michael Carter is also back. 1-2 punch in some combination, I would think. Michael Carter won't be phased out by Zonovan Knight.
No.
Unless Zonovan starts really just overpower, like 3 times the yards per Gary. Bit of a gamble for probably either, however. Isaiah McKenzie, good heavens, man. Can we just restart the whole podcast? Like, Isaiah McKenzie emerging as a dependable wide receiver option. James Cook, what do you think? Like, we talked about him on Wednesday with Zeke, and I'm interested to see how they deploy him, because this could be a good opportunity. He's a pass catching back. He did a lot of carrying, and now you're coming up against a team that has a very good front 7, but that may actually lead to a better opportunity in the passing game for James Cook. Get around the 7, screens, short little in plays, something like that. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of Singletary in this one, or any other short, like if he's going to be phased out of the pass catching game, I definitely don't like it. Jets feel comfortable against Mike White. I think Buffalo wins, but I wouldn't hate taking the Jets to cover their spread. They're 10 points.
Yeah, totally. This was another one where, yeah, Buffalo is a great team, but I was a little surprised by this spread. Um, the Jets, I mean, they have the record to show it. Their defense is not bad. Their defense is good. I mean, we talk about it every week. Their pressure that they're putting on, their natural pressure, as you have put it. And with Mike White under center, I heard someone kind of compare this situation to the Robert Griffin III and Kirk Cousins situation in Washington, where RG3 came out, Cousins took over and actually started playing well, and then became the
Mhm.
starter, and they stuck with him. And now he's in Minnesota, he's the starter there, and they're a good team. So Mike Waite, somebody that they got on the cheap in terms of the draft, and he's been, every time they play him, he's done decently. He's getting them wins. He's still got he's got a ways to go. He could obviously throw the interceptions, he could break down, but he's a much better option, I think, for the offense as a whole, especially from a receiving standpoint. I think
Right.
that this game may go over, and I think the spread's going to be closer,
Okay. Real.
especially with Buffalo's defense kind of hurting a bit.
Yeah. Yep. The Jets have a 24.6 pressure percentage off of 15% blitz, which is by far for anyone above 20% pressure, or anyone above 23% pressure. That is the lowest blitz percentage. For point of reference, the Jets blitz 15% of the time through 13 weeks. They have a 24.6% pressure rate. The Giants have a 24.8% pressure rate. They blitz 40% of the time.
Oh, damn.
And that's 0.2%. This is a really good front seven, like a very slept on team. Let's just call it that. Running backs, like we talked about, Zonovan Knight, James Cook, two potential flyer options. I don't personally have them on a watch list for me, just because this game, I think, based on the two quarterbacks, I think it's going to be a little more throw heavy. That doesn't rule out James Cook,
Right.
but it just means with Isaiah McKenzie and Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs being who they are, Garrett Wilson being who he is, Michael Carter encroaching upon Zonovan Knight. I think they're not like top options. If you're filling in for somebody, why not? If you have locked into the playoffs and you're starting next week, if you're 10-3 or 11-2 and you're locked in and you have no point in really worrying about it, you just need somebody to play to put up a score, perfectly fine for either one. I'd probably lean James Cook over Zonovan Knight just because of the defenses. Bills defense still doesn't allow a lot of touchdowns over the Jets, but also like Elijah Moore in this, he will join in as the wide receiver 2 for my purposes. Mike White's throwing. I don't think it's a secret Garrett Wilson is the number 1. So that lines up Elijah Moore. Corey Davis is
I
not
was gonna say,
horrible.
yeah, I like Corey Davis.
I like Corey Davis a little bit. Not a huge fan of Dawson Knox in this one. Devin Singletary too. They could both. I would say both are kind of touchdown dependent in this one, and that's not necessarily a sit, but that'd be wary. So I put him as a sit, but that's on the show plan. But that's the closest you're going to get. So, anything else for this one?
No, I think we touched on a lot of it. I expect a closer than expected game.
All right. And that brings us to the Browns at 5-7, going to Cincinnati across state, take on the 8-4 Bengals. Cincinnati 5.5-point favorites, over under at 46.5. And this is the first of.
It's time to
We're gonna go back. Old school intro. Host v host, game 1. Cincinnati needs a huge rebound versus Cleveland. They are, and by they I mean Joe Burrow. We'll just shorten up Joe Burrow because he's been with the team. They're 3-0 in regular season game versus the Chiefs now. They are 0-3 versus Cleveland, which is just
Yeah.
they're apart. It'll be an interesting battle of the quarterbacks. It is Joe Burrow versus, of course, Mr. Deshaun Watson. And
women are not people.
Um,
They are devices built by the Lord Jesus Christ for our entertainment.
yeah, he's gonna get one of those every single time we bring up his name. So the best thing for him, as far as we're concerned, is just get to the off season where he doesn't have to play. He was mediocre last week. Let's just be honest. But I think, like you said, much to his credit, he's rusty.
Mhm.
He has the tools. If Jacoby Brissett had the tools, Deshaun Watson has the tools. It ain't no different. He's got the arm. He can run. He can run better than Jacoby Brissett. I would think with a whole nother week of practice, working with an exact game plan all the way through, should be a little bit more dependable. A Cleveland loss here basically eliminates them from playoff contention just because of who it's to.
Mm.
Bengals would go to 9-4. They would go to 5-8. So with, let's see, 15, 16, 17, 18, they would need, yeah, and they would lose. It'd be close, one of the two. Joe Mixon's back. Hayden Hurst. Did we have an update on Hayden Hurst? I didn't hear you in the 9.
Yeah, he's out.
He is out. Okay. So I put maybe out, which, I wrote this yesterday. So there's still plenty of weapons for Joe Burrow. No surprise. Samaje Perine will be the backup for Joe Mixon, if backup's really the word. Mixon should be okay to carry his usual 70 to 80% load though. T. Higgins is my start. Jamar Chase will be the target for both sides. I think I started T. Higgins like 3 different times out of Cincinnati's games in the last like 6 weeks, and it's paid off most of the time. So Tyler Boyd as well. Yeah. Why did I put? So did you see who I just realized this? And there's no excuse on me being tired. Do you see who I put as a sit for this? It was the wrong game.
Yeah.
Like that's not even close. It's like 3 games too low. So, good heavens. I thought I had a sit for this, and this is what happens when you don't proofread. So I put Jamison Williams from the Detroit game as a sit. And it's true for Detroit. He may be valuable in like 2 weeks because if his snaps start ticking up, he'll end up biting into the usage of Amon-Ra and DJ Chark. He has nothing to do with Cleveland or Cincinnati. So keep that
I
in
mean,
mind.
I would say Boyd is a sit, especially the way he's been playing.
Yeah. Boyd's a good one. Boyd's a good one in there. I don't really have a lot of other sit options though. These are like the over-under's 46.5. Is Njoku playing?
He is.
He is back. It's not a sit.
No.
Deshaun Watson, maybe, just because of the difference in completion percentage. And also he's going to shake off some rest, but he's not going to be the old Deshaun Watson, I don't think. Hadn't played in almost 2 years. So that would be it that I have for this one. My score, by the way, Cincinnati 26, Cleveland 19.
Okay. As per usual, very similar. I have Browns 19, Bengals 28.
Okay. 28-19. You went a little closer. You went slightly over,
I did, yeah.
and I went a little under. That's okay. We'll be okay with that. Anything else to add for this game?
I mean, I would say Joe Mixon should be back to his norm. It's not like he had an injury. He just had the concussion. Obviously, keep an eye on whether anything changes with that. But the Cleveland run defense is not great, so he should have a pretty decent game. And I don't know if they're going to continue to use Samaje Perine since he's been doing well, but before Mixon was out, he was getting a ton of usage, even if he wasn't doing too much with it earlier on in the season. He started to pick things up before the concussion. So I could see a pretty decent game out of him.
Cleveland giving up 116 yards per game on the ground. Yeah, that would mean a good chunk for Mixon. Cincinnati giving up only 101 on the ground, both over the last 3. So Nick Chubb may be in for a little bit of a tougher time, but honestly, it doesn't matter because Deshaun Watson has to be better than he was last week.
Right.
Next game, Jaguars 4-8 at the Titans 7-5. Tennessee 3.5-point favorites over under at 41. Jaguars played absolutely horrible against the Lions last week, and now they have to face the top of their division, albeit a terrible division, but the top of their division. Tennessee also got manhandled by the Eagles, which I realized after when I was editing the show on Tuesday night, we never covered the Eagles and the Titans game.
Oh, no.
There wasn't a whole heck of a lot to talk about, but I'll catch you guys up. The Eagles won by a lot,
Yeah.
so there you go. That's just 6 days late. That's all it is. Tennessee, they have to. This is a game where you have to assert like a little bit of divisional dominance. You have to make sure everybody in this division knows. And this is the only team I think that it really can make a stink down the road. And it starts here if they're going to, as far as Jacksonville. Derrick Henry should return closer to their 100-yard mark again. Jacksonville is not stout. They gave up 100 yards to Swift and Williams last week from Detroit. Derrick Henry, of course, is like one of the 3 best running backs in the league, 5 best maybe. Christian Kirk, easy start. Zay Jones, underwhelming last week. I would go right back to the well with him. You don't get many of those 7, 8 target, 2 reception weeks in a row. Ingram was good. Etienne was not. Seems like the offense for Jacksonville is going in a few separate directions. I don't know if they're trying out some things, but Jacksonville gave up 8 third-down conversions last week. Their average was 5.6 per game heading into it. So that's let's say 2.5, 3. That's at least probably 80 yards on the field, 60 to 80 yards that they could have saved in third downs. They need to redeem themselves against a Tennessee team that only converts 35.9% of their third downs. So the difference in this team will probably be, or the difference in this game will probably be third down conversions based on those stats. Jacksonville returned to their ways. Tennessee's a good way to go about it. Start Zay Jones. Tennessee allows the most fantasy points to wide receivers. It's almost 30 a game. So
Yeah, I was gonna note that.
yeah, well, it's pretty open shut there. Sit Hooper and Ingram. Both of these teams allow 7 fantasy points or less to the tight end. I guess Sit is still tough. They're tight end or they're touchdown dependent. Hooper has a shot with no Treylon Burks. Ingram less so because of all of everyone else around him. But we said that I would have said that last week and he had a touchdown. So yeah. Anything else for this one from you? I think Tennessee goes to 8-5 here. They need a bounce back. They are the best team out of this division, which is kind of like saying they're the shiniest turd. But I don't really have anything else for this one. Not a game. This will probably be honestly in our express lane come Wednesday. But
Yeah. As far as tight ends for Tennessee, the rookie and this one, I'm really. I'll try to say the last. Yes. He had 58. Nicely done. 58% snap share last week versus Hooper, who was I think 49. So almost 50-50. A little bit more in favor of the rookie. Yeah. But he did have 5 targets, caught 4 of them, just under 10 points in half PPR, and I think just over 10 points in PPR. So he might be somebody to glance at if you're really hurting or you're looking for a flyer. Hurting at tight end, that is.
Well, let's see. Who is on bye again? Juwan Johnson, John Bates, Logan Thomas, Kyling Branson, Jelani Woods. Isn't a great tight end bye week.
Cole Kmet being probably the best of the ones
biggest.
that are out.
Yeah, and he's been unfortunately inconsistent because of the last 3 games the Bears have played. 2 games,
Yeah.
really. I think they've had 2 games. Yeah, that's. I'd dart throw it more in a DFS than I would as a. Hopefully, you have something else, but like this is. I don't know. I'm not gonna. I would rather play Ingram than him, and there's a lot of other options from the wide receiver for deep play. or for good, dependable, like yardage, yak even.
Mm-hmm.
Okonkwo's had 2 games where he stood out, and the rest of him he's been kind of quiet. It was last week, and then like 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago when they played Kansas City, and Malik Willis started, and then he had like they didn't throw any passes to wide receivers, but Okonkwo had like 2 catches and 50 yards. Those are the only 2 games I can remember him standing out. The rest
Yeah.
of them have been Woods, Burks, Hooper, Westbrook Akina. I don't hate Westbrook Akina in this either. They need someone to fill in for this can't be a run it game all the way. I really don't think so. The Jaguars activated K'Lavon Chaisson. They have a better run defense than we give them credit for. Granted, it hasn't been great over the last like 5 weeks. 139 yards on the ground given up over the last 3. But they have a better run defense than it looks. Their season average is 113 with those 139 over the last 3. So at a certain point, they were right at 100 yards a game. Derrick Henry, where I see him probably at this is 100 to 110. Anything else from this one?
Nope.
Perfect. Eagles 11-1, going to East Rutherford, New Jersey, taking on the Giants 7-4-1. Philadelphia only a touchdown. Oh, it's in New York, so it'd probably be 10 points in Philly, but only a touchdown favorite. Over under at 45. Giants have a lot to prove in this game, and if they don't have Saquon, it becomes much harder. They have 2 disappointing weeks in a row. We said this 2 weeks ago going into the Washington game. They're starting to slide. Then they tie Washington. Doesn't look good. Actually looks like about as ugly as good can get. Because a tie is not a loss, but it might as well have been a loss. Like a loss would have been more more organized, I think, for the standings anyway. Jones is still really throwing to no one. Philadelphia is welcoming Avonte Maddox back from IR. He was activated on Wednesday, one of those days. And that's just another problem. You have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who goes to the IR last week. Next week, they activate Avonte Maddox. And as soon as you think you have a shot with your secondary that is very damaged, you don't. Or at least it becomes difficult. You really do, but it's difficult. If Saquon plays, or if he doesn't and Breida plays pass game from the backfield, you need to alleviate some of this pressure. Jones is going to have to rush. I don't see an easy way for the Giants to get a win here. Like, bar some really bad mistakes from Jalen Hurts. Now I say that, and we just saw 3 or 4 weeks ago they almost got beat by the Colts. They get beat by the Commanders right around that time frame as well. It's up in the air for me if the Giants can stay in this one, if they can stay in this one. Philadelphia is Philadelphia. They're good at a lot of things. They're bad at very few. Giants are 28th versus the rush. Miles Sanders is a go. Fun side note here, Boston Scott has 16 career touchdowns. 8 of them have come against the Giants. I don't have anything surprising for Philadelphia. I think it's just going to be Philadelphia. Daniel Bellinger should be back. Did he play last week?
He did, yeah.
He did? Okay. Well, he should be a little bit more in game shape in anyway.
Right.
This is a big task for this Giants O-line. I mean, they're banged up in most of the defensive case. Their O-line isn't great. Start Sanders. I'm going to sit everything on the Giants that's not Daniel Jones. If Saquon plays, you play him because you don't ever sit Saquon. Matt Breida is flyer worthy if Saquon's out. Other than that, I like the Eagles in this one.
Yeah, by far. But I guess not by far, but also by far. The Giants just really hurting on offensive weapons, especially if Saquon is out. So the Eagles, Hurts just, we've talked about this before, adds such an extra dynamic option to this team that really opens up the entire offense for them. So and they continue to adjust to other teams nicely, especially after the half. And the Giants being a decent defense, I don't see that being an issue once they figure out things that are working against them.
And they stay healthy.
Mhm.
They can't keep Ojolari and Leonard Williams. They can't keep any of these guys on the field.
Right.
And it's a big problem. So next game, Ravens 8-4 going to Pittsburgh, take on the 5-7 Steelers. Pittsburgh 2-point favorites over under 36.5. And this is game number 2 of our host v host.
It's time to
As we talked about on Wednesday's show with ZG, Lamar Jackson, question marks, but there's less of a question mark around Tyler Huntley than a lot of other backup quarterbacks.
Mm.
It is Huntley time. 2 young quarterbacks facing off. Huntley, Kenny Pickett. Ravens have had more problems with Pittsburgh in recent years. Pickett will need to be as calm as he was. They can't allow any pressure. That offensive line has to be as good as it's been the last couple games. Pickett needs to find targets. He's good at making plays out, seeing zone defenses and where the routes are going. Like you can see it on tape. Like he passes the eye test right now because he just looks decent with the wide receivers. Baltimore has given up 2,100 yards to wide receivers so far this year through 12 games. So it's good. You got there's yards there.
Yeah.
Yards. Pickens should see more targets after he was vocally upset after his 2 targets last week. I think he had like 4 the week before. Deontay Johnson is the better receiver. He's been improving of recent. I mentioned it on Wednesday's show. We all kind of agree. He had 5 for 40 some last week. Had a red zone target the week before. I kind of love both of them in this matchup. Pat Freiermuth, don't hate it either. He's a good Stableford. He's like the home of the pass game for Kenny Pickett. Let me see. Tyler Huntley. He is a high floor. He takes on rush yards, the accuracy, which he passed the accuracy last week, 27 for 32. He duplicates the numbers. It's easy to keep Baltimore in this game. Pittsburgh's not good against wide receivers in coverage. Their completion percentage allowed is just like 31st. They don't quite allow as many yards as Baltimore, but that's kind of a different story. So if he can keep his accuracy, this could end up being a close game. 36.5 is kind of a low, you're looking at 17-19. I am not quite there. I have Pittsburgh 21-15. I do think, the big factor for me here is, does TJ Watt make that big of a difference?
Right.
Because he's been a monster since he came back. Man who broke the sack record last year he's doing what he needs to do, and he makes a difference on this defensive 7.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well.
That's going to be the big thing for Tyler Huntley is you were 27 for 32 against a very good Denver team. Now how are you going to do it when there's either Alex Highsmith or TJ Watt or any number of linebackers or nose tackles or whatever in your face? 27 for 32, I think will be a blessing for him. I would look for somewhere around like the 60% completion range, 60 to 65, and you'll get a thumbs up. I like Demarcus Robinson. He's had really good target numbers for Baltimore over the last several weeks, generally. Pickens and Deontay Johnson go to town. Baltimore, however, allows the 4th least fantasy points running backs. They've allowed 82 yards per game this season on the ground and only 54 yards per game over their last 3 to the rush attack. I am very wary of Najee Harris. He's been on an uptick. This could very easily be a step back. I'm not a fan of Najee here. Jalen Warren, if he's good for PPR, but again, you're basing a little bit more on the pass game with both of these guys at that point. And the fantasy points to them screams that it's not a great spot for running backs in general. So I'm going to stay away from those 2.
Yeah, obviously some people probably can't stay away from Harris depending on where you drafted him, but I completely agree. That is the tough spot here from the Pittsburgh offensive standpoint, and like we talked about, at least from a defensive standpoint, they've been much better with TJ Watt. He makes a huge difference. So Huntley does have his work cut out for him. Yeah, I have similar. I have Ravens 16, Steelers 19. I like your score possibly a little better than mine, with the Steelers scoring a bit more, just because the Ravens defense doesn't really have a spot where they shut anybody down. They're like, I don't know, in the 22nd to 25th, I think, for each of the running back, wide receiver, tight end matchup. So Pittsburgh should have a little bit of an easier time creating opportunities for themselves.
Well, wide receiver to tight end, they're in that range. They're not. They're only a hair better than Pittsburgh. Running backs are very good against. So statistically, I mean, Najee Harris
okay.
takes one break out to all the crap, right? Just it comes to making the right play calls at that point, and that could happen. But I'm wary of it. That's my only take.
Yeah.
Baltimore fourth least fan to running backs, just under 12 a game.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why I said that about the running backs. We obviously just talked about that.
Okay, I was just saying.
No,
Baltimore
point out.
and Baltimore was really good defense at the beginning part of the year. It's just they soured and they got beat to death with a stick on the outside a lot. And it changed. Next game we'll glaze over because we already kind of touched on this, and I don't want to beat a dead horse anymore. Chiefs 9-3, Broncos 3-9. They're in Denver. Kansas City's only a 9-point favorite there. Over under 44. Denver offense is bad. Their defense is better. Kansas City's good at both. So Denver defense, unfortunately, it can't hold up the lack of offensive production. There's no offensive stability. You don't know where the fantasy points are coming from. If Cortland Sutton is out this week, it becomes a little easier as far as like, do you start Jerry Jeudy? The answer is yes. If you have him, yeah, you're probably going to wake up like with a fantasy football hangover on Monday, but yeah. Dulcich is probably my favorite start from Denver and my only start from Denver. I don't like Russell Wilson. Sorry. Dulcich is still a gamble. It's not like
right.
any of them aren't. But no one's there to take things from him. Like Judy really isn't either. He's going to be the one here for the wide receivers. Also, statistically in his career, pretty good against Kansas City. But Russell Wilson's what scares me. The offensive, maybe the play call. I don't know. Something about Denver smells absolutely horrible. Like when food starts to turn and you're like, man, I don't think I should eat this. Yeah, that's Denver for me. Kansas City, Pacheco. Yeah, he's the RB1. Not a good opponent as far as statistics. They hold running backs pretty well. But this is the Chiefs. They're a really good offense. MVS, Juju, Kelsey. What else is there to say? I'll start Dulcich and no one else from Denver. I'm going to sit everyone else from Denver. And that's simply based off nobody can touch the Dulcich train. He's going to be out there. He's not going to have anybody moving or too many moving parts. He sees 90% of snaps when he plays. Anything else from this one? I think Kansas City wins.
Yeah. I mean, Judy for me is a flex, probably not in play for me. Russ has just been so bad. They're not scoring. They're not putting together good drives. But yeah.
I'm just gonna real quick side note and completely ADD from this. This is a really weird ginger ale smell. So remember what I was saying about Denver? Yeah. Ginger ale doesn't quite turn like that, but man, I just had a minute.
You're drinking some Denver.
Yeah, I'm drinking Denver. Here we go. Okay. Last game before the break, we got 6 minutes or so. Buccaneers 6-6 at the 49ers, 8-4. Now we get a decent football game.
Do we?
And I think this is the Buccaneers are not great. San Francisco has Brock Purdy. There's got to be some equality here. I think this will be a decent game. San Francisco is only a 3.5-point favorite at home. That means in Tampa Bay, it's a break even.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I mean, you essentially have San Francisco with a phenomenal cast of offensive weapons aside from Purdy, and that's like Purdy did okay. And then on
Yeah.
the other side of the ball, you have the aging GOAT who has been a little up and down, and Evans not really connecting well. So basically, you just have Godwin and then up and coming rookie running back. So it's kind of like a weird, like knowledgeable, experienced QB versus the inexperienced QB who has weapons.
Yeah, that's a really good way of saying it. To be honest, over all of it. To be honest, overarching. Ooh, the more you know. Bucks came in clutch, fourth quarter Monday night. Tom, locking and loading, right? And now San Francisco has this young, inexperienced quarterback. The only game footage that Tampa Bay has was the 3.5 quarters that he played. Is it going to be a different game script and a different, different game plan? Yeah. So it's a little interesting. Both of these teams that is in an essence could have really good defensive outings. The over under for this game is only 37. I
Right.
think with Jimmy G, this is a 42 to 44, which is more normal. CMC is, in my opinion, CMC will have a huge role in keeping Purdy looking Purdy. And that's both a play on his name and a true testament to a young player.
Mhm.
Use your star running back who can catch a Vaseline football and and throw everything at him as bailouts, effective runs, pass blocking. It's a different game. Overall, I think the ceiling for Kittle, Debo, and Ayuk drops slightly. I mean, we saw 32. Was he 27 for 32 as well? I think it was more than that.
Purdy was 25 for 37.
25 for 37. Okay, so he wasn't quite as good as I thought. He was almost as good as Tyler Huntley. Wasn't quite as good. But if he throws the ball 40 times, that'll comprise San Francisco holding onto the ball for extended periods of time. He'll probably do well. Tampa Bay's defense will surely target him in some way. I could see slightly a few more blitzes thrown his way, make him do something different, make him uncomfortable. San Francisco is the number one defense overall, however, and like you said, Evans and Tom are not on the same page as much as they have been in weeks like 1 through 8 or 1 through 9. Chris Godwin is still your standard. I'm going to run 5 yards, turn, and you'll throw the ball at me, and I'll catch it somehow, most of the time, some of the time, whatever. He's also a little bit more heavily used in the red zone, which is important for fantasy standout. Rashad White is creeping into the RB picture. Leonard Fournette's still there. Don't really know who's going to get the touchdowns. There isn't a great pick against the number one defense that doesn't allow teams to score, especially a team that had problems scoring for the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season. I'll go with Rashad White. I'm not a huge fan of Kittle. I want to see Kittle have like a 6 or 7 target game. Could be perfectly fine. This could be that game against Tampa Bay. Debo also, like I said, with the ceiling being lower, Debo I'm a little more cautious of. Antoine Winfield's still there, Jamel Dean's still there. There's some good secondary pieces. All in all, I think it's going to be a really good game. I don't hate being one to sit down and watch a good chunk of this one. It'll be at 4:30 on Sunday, I believe. So
Yeah, I think that's correct. Yeah, 425. Yeah, I don't know. The Bucks they haven't put up a lot of points. I think it'll be a close game. But it's just not going to be a high scoring effort. So we might see a good defensive matchup just because of the inexperience with Purdy. I mean, honestly, the Bucks defense is pretty good anyways. And obviously San Francisco's defense is very good. So yeah, it's going to be probably a low scoring effort, good defensive matchup. And then I'll probably just end it there, other than Kittle has probably the best matchup, but unfortunately we don't really know his usage with Purdy, and maybe the Bucks focus on him a little bit more. I don't know.
I'm intrigued to see how they do for how is Tampa Bay versus tight ends? Yeah,
I think
it's
that's their
true.
weak spot.
8.2, yeah, 8.2 fantasy points per position, 6 touchdowns, 656 yards given up the season. That's 50 yards, so he could stand out. I am still wary of it, but it's just me. So, that's gonna bring us to part 3. We're gonna take our last break right here. Go ahead and sign us off, man.
We'll see you on the flip.
How do you feel about tacos? Mamma mia!
Welcome back. It's part 3 of the Fantasy Flyer. Only got 3 games left.
We did pretty
That's what
well.
happens. 6 teams are on bye.
Well, that helps.
That helps. There's 3 games less. Otherwise, we'd have a full 6, and then we'd have a full part 3. But we only got 3 teams. We're gonna give you 5 fantasy flyers. We're gonna get out of here because it's Saturday night, and I gotta get the video up so you guys can watch it at some point before Sunday. And that probably won't happen for a lot of you because I sleep in on Sunday, don't you?
I do not. I am always up.
No,
at
you don't. You have a
7:30
child.
a.m. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That's what happens. Next game: Panthers 4-8 at the Seahawks 7-5. Seattle 4-point favorites at home, over under 44.5. And this is the final
Flawless victory.
the final game of our host v host. The Panthers are generally an interesting. However, I've noted this in my head and not on the screen, and I didn't think about it again until I just looked at the over under. Seattle is a 4-point favorite at home. So they're kind of noting that the Panthers are a little bit more offensively coherent with Sam Darnold, and that their defense isn't all that horrible, because of 4 points at home, over under 44.5. Like they're kind of looking at they're looking in somewhere in that like 23 to 20, 24 to 20 range.
Right, something like that. Yeah, I mean, and Seattle's defense not being great doesn't help.
Yeah, they give up a good chunk, especially to running backs. Seem to be a problem for them at times. Wide receivers can too. It's almost like they pick a different place to be weak on some weeks. Weak on some weeks. It's redundant. Let's see where they are in the wide receiver rankings.
That's
How many
their
points?
bright spot, actually. They're in the top 10. I have 7th here.
Let's see what their fantasy point is, because I can't find them on this because I am. Oh, yep, you are correct. I have them. Hold on. I have them 6th. 17.2 total, 2 wide receivers, 1,629 yards, 138 receptions, 9 touchdowns so far this year on 220 targets. That's a total of 206 fantasy points. I don't think that's PPR. That's half point. But still.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is they are 31st against tight ends, but none of the tight ends for Carolina have really done much of anything. So it's going to be a pretty good running back game for them. And then hopefully DJ Moore still has a decent game.
Yes, running backs, they are 29th in the league versus running backs, merely ahead of the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns 30th. Chargers and Texans bring up the rear, and it's not even close between the Browns and the Chargers. Seahawks 1,352 yards on the ground, 11 touchdowns. It's 253 fantasy points. Texans have given up 278 fantasy points, which is like a whole game more than anyone else at this point. Let's check the quick rushing yards over the last 3 for Seattle, because it's important. 205 on the ground over the last 3. Holy schmolies. So that makes my start for this game an absolute must. That's Deontay Foreman, in case you're curious. So Seahawks and both teams, I guess, are a little bit more I guess I can wipe away kind of this first point because both teams are a little bit more interesting now. Sam Darnold has played decent, okay, but definitely the best of the three quarterbacks we've seen.
Mhm.
I would say start the usual names: Metcalf, Lockett. The problem with these games that the Seahawks have faced, who've been their last three that they've had to deal with two wide receivers that can really like go off. And again, there's really not one here. There's DJ Moore you got to watch out for. Like they faced Arizona without Rondell Moore or Marquise Brown. So you had DeAndre Hopkins, who didn't have a great game, if I recall correctly. I'm trying to think about who else they had to face. I don't even remember who they faced last week. The Rams. They faced the Rams last week.
Right.
Rams was mostly run game. It was Cam Akers. Had 2 touchdowns and 60 yards. So that's like 2 of your last 3 weeks. There's an opportunity for DJ Moore to do great, but can that hold up Carolina?
Right.
Or can Foreman hold up Carolina, I should say.
Yeah, I would say more so that.
Yeah. Carolina defense is generally pretty good. Their front 7 on the defense. I think I said it on Wednesday show. Brian Burns has been like really good. Like totally, dude. A lot of sacks. He sacked Russell Wilson or was that? He was mocking Russell Wilson last week. I think that was him. Pretty sure that was him. And he should. Everyone should mock Russell Wilson right now. More actually, you know what? We should mock Denver's front office for making that dumb trade.
Yeah.
I can't even say that. Let me recorrect that for the second time. We need to mark them or mock them for giving him that giant extension without seeing him play a game. I don't, like you said, I don't like any of the tight ends here. Tommy Tremble, Ian Thomas. It's like putting on 2 left shoes. Start Foreman. I'm not a fan of Seattle's running back situation. Travis Homer will probably be okay, but that's not amazing. 124 yards on the ground given up over the last 3 for Carolina. You're probably not going to see that in this one. So regardless of who starts. I don't know where to go in this one, I think. That's what's holding me up here. The score.
The score.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one was a weird one. I kind of went chalk. And I think I'm gonna regret it, but I have Panthers 20, Seahawks 24.
Yeah, you did go chalk. Literally
I shouldn't say kind of, I did.
Yeah, you did. So the big question for me is how much, because DJ Moore is going to have Tariq Woolen on him. And Woolen's been very good in coverage. And that leaves it all up to Foreman. And there's
Karis Marshall has been okay. And LaVisca Chenault has been kind of the gadget guy. I think that Darnold is competent enough and has shown that with he's only been back for 1 game or 2.
2.
Okay. I think that he's shown that he can more or less keep them in a game, especially a game like this where Seattle does allow points, even if DJ Moore, his first option, isn't as available.
I'm going to go Seattle 28-22. I'm going to go over on this one because I don't think Seattle's not in the position to lose. So let's be clear on that because they have an opportunity to get right back into this NFC West. You have Brock Purdy leading your division, leading 49ers for at least the next 3 games or 4 games. So there's
I
opportunity.
mean, everything I've read is that Garoppolo is not going to be able to come back this season.
Yeah, like the earliest at best would be during the playoffs, and that's if they make it there. So I don't think like the Seahawks are 7-5. I don't think 9-8 is a shoe in for the playoffs.
Mm.
So, yeah, that they need to win this one. I think Gino knows that. Gino has the best completion percentage in the league. He's still over 72%. Lockett, Metcalf. How are the other side of the coin? Let's see real quick how the Panthers are versus wide receivers. It's a very interesting thing that you have. I mean, Metcalf and Lockett went for 127 and 128 yards or something last weekend. Did very, very well.
Yeah, I have here they're like 22nd.
Panther. I got something a lot better than that on a fantasy basis, anyway. 1,826 yards, 168 receptions, 8 touchdowns, averaging 14 catches and 152 yards per game to wide receivers. Let's see how they've been over the last. Let's see passing yards because it doesn't break it down on this website. So let's see passing yards per game. That's going to be an important part for Seattle at that point is to 144.7 passing yards over the last 3. I mean, that's not gonna. You have Geno Smith who averages like 270 a game or something. So I don't see 144 being logical, but yeah, that's going to be important. You see a little bit of a lower, like a lower ceiling, lower floor for Lockett and Metcalf. That doesn't mean a lot. They can still win this game, but it'll come down to their defense. So actually, that kind of leads me to believe this could be an under. I might want to change my score real quick. Well, this is how. I mean, this is the thought process, right? Like this is something a lot of these guys don't see when we're pre-show, and I'm pre-showing anyway. Because if you're looking at that, if it's 144, let's say the ceiling for that is plus or minus per receiver. You have Metcalf and Lockett at 168 receptions over 12 games. So you're averaging roughly 14. Yeah, it's 14 receptions a game on the dot, 152 yards overall for an 18.8 on fantasy points. At 10, let's say even on the high end of that, you're looking at 144 yards passing, 10 points per your 10, 12 points for those two. Yeah, like this is going to be an under game if Seattle's defense holds Sam Darnold. What you just talked about, they hold receivers. It's the run game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, actually, I'm gonna change the score. Gotta change it now. Can't change it after the Let's lock in. It's locked in. That's 4 points. So I'm gonna lower. That's gonna be a lower percentage. You're probably looking at a full touchdown lower in points. That puts them right to where. So I was 28-22. That would put my over under around 43 instead of 50, which is just under.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that kind of works out. 40. I'm going to go closer to the 42 range. I don't think Geno Smith is going to throw less than 200 yards still.
No, yeah.
I think it matters. I think you're going to see a little more spread out. That's only over their last 3, though. Brian Burns. All right, so Brian Burns, 2 sacks in this game. I'm calling it right now. DK Metcalf and Lockett each have less than 80 yards. Noah Fant and Will Dissly plays, we'll each see the field a good chunk, and we'll have some targets. And I'm going to go 3. Yeah, 23-19.
Okay.
So I changed it. You were 24-20, which isn't bad. But I'm going to go more on the under. I'm going to go a full 2 points lower. So now, unfortunately, I'm more like you. So just when I was different, I'm not different anymore. So what happens when you look at stats? You can find it out. 144 over the last 3. They're creating more pressures. I wonder what their blitz pressure is. I don't know. I'll load it after the show. Next game. What are we at anyway? It's the Sunday night football game. Dolphins 8-4. Chargers 6-6. Miami 3.5-point favorites. Over under at 53.5. The Dolphins are going to have wins to keep. Jesus H, man.
Are you sure about that?
No, I'm not. They have to keep winning. If Buffalo keeps winning, they have to keep it close. They are 6th in the AFC because Buffalo leads. Dolphins have the number 6 spot. A loss here, especially to the Chargers, puts the Chargers in, and it would put the Dolphins very close, especially if the Patriots win, which will be the last game we talk about, the Monday Night Football game. If Buffalo makes any mistakes, it becomes a little bit easier on the Dolphins. Comes a little easier on everybody, really, in the AFC. Did I say Patriots? I meant Jets. Same thing. Especially if Buffalo loses to the Jets, we get a problem because the Jets are
Right.
7. So it's an interesting scenario here where if Buffalo loses to the Jets and Miami loses to the Chargers, Miami falls out of playoff contention. The Chargers jump in and the Jets go up to 6th. So odd. Chargers are bad versus the rush attack, and they're bad at holding wide receivers to low yardages. Tyreek Hill should not have a huge problem with this game. Waddle should have a bounce back game. He only had 1 catch for 5 yards or 9 yards on 5. Yeah, he had 5 targets, 1 catch, 9 yards last week. Also had a little bit of an injury in that game, but came back. And Chargers have to utilize Allen, Eckler. I like Mike Williams in this a lot. I think Allen is the go-to. He had 14 targets last week, 6 catches, had a touchdown. Eckler, of course, is good for his 5 to 7 catches, and I don't think there's much Miami can do to stop that. But Mike Williams is the curveball for Miami here. For the Miami side, Tyreek Hill start, Jalen Waddle start. Mike Gesicki, it's a question mark for me. Chargers, not horrible against the tight end. They're like midfield and fantasy points given up, but it is, again, you're picking for 4 or 5 targets out of 40 compared to Tyreek and Waddle. So I would much more like Jeff Wilson. Again, the Chargers not good against the run. Raheem Mostert too. This would be a good bounce back game for them because they got absolutely shut down by the 49ers, which was kind of expected on my behalf. But this should be much more of an opportunity for them. 53.5 is the largest over under on the slate. This is honestly a little bit more of a tough game than it should be for my, I guess, betting purposes. Miami is 3.5-point favorites in LA, but we know what that means for home field. Like Miami is basically at home in Los Angeles. It's the same way as it is with the Rams. So both teams are at home in this one. So it could be a close game. I'm still going to take Miami just because they have better offensive weapons and their defense is better, in my opinion. Did you fall off the face of the planet?
I did not. I didn't know if you were.
No,
Anyways.
I'm
Okay.
good.
Yeah, I mean, neither defense is great by any means. Yeah, I think Miami being a hair better. But yeah, I mean, like we obviously the over under is high. Miami being favored, I agree with, but Mike Williams being back, Josh Palmer showing some stuff. Yeah, I think this could be actually a bit of a shootout and something that might be fun to watch.
Chargers have given up 12 touchdowns to wide receivers, which is tied for 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it's tied for like 13th in the league. So many teams have like 15, 16, 12 is just there. A couple teams with 13. Dolphins have only given up 8. The Dolphins have actually given up more receiving yards, less touchdowns, less fantasy points. So could be more of a run-based game on either side, given that Eckler is a big part of the receiving core. So I'll let
Yeah.
your take on it.
This also could be a decent game for Everett. That's probably the weakest spot, or not probably, is the weakest spot for Miami.
Yeah, he's like we said on Wednesday show with Zach. They are 30th in fantasy points to the tight end, and it's a big gap between 30th and 31st, like 8.6 to 11 points, the difference in that gap, but that's per player. Everett's sneaky. He was on my start list until I put Jeff Wilson Jr. there because Jeff Wilson Jr. against the Chargers is like almost no-brainer territory. And next behind Wilson, honestly, would be Mostert for the same reason. But Everett is confidently the fourth. I just like the target share Mike Williams will get. So, and again, the yardage just might be a yardage dependent. Like I said, they've given up more yards by 100 more this year to the almost 100 more than the Chargers have. They just haven't been allowing the touchdowns.
Right.
So might be more of a big play thing, which again, Mike Williams, he can get up, he can win fights for the football. So last game, Patriots 6-6 at the Cardinals 4-8. This is Monday Night Football. New England 1.5 point favorites in Arizona. Over under 43.5. Arizona is coming off of their bye week. They are one of the most sacked teams. I did not know. Most stacked teams. Excuse me. That's not how you read. So I can't speak and I can't read. I should probably just quit while I'm ahead. It's interesting to note that through 6 games, the Cardinals were 2-4, and we said, "Oh, they made it to DeAndre Hopkins, right?" And then DeAndre Hopkins came back, and now they're 4-8, which is literally over the next 6 games they haven't done any better. James Conner saw an uptick prior to the bye. New England's defense is allowing less than 4 yards per rush attempt. He may have the red zone exposure, which is important. He had 2 touchdowns the week before the bye, week 12, excuse me. Week 11, he also had a touchdown. So that will save his fantasy day if he can get another one of those. He is a sneaky play for the fantasy playoffs. You probably should be looking at him. Can Mac Jones keep throwing it? We said after, I think it was it last week before, we said, Mac Jones, when you throw the ball, Ramondre Stevenson can't hold this team, and you need to throw the ball. And I think Matt Patricia is the only person who doesn't quite understand that all the time. Ramondre Stevenson is not the offense. And that matters. Now you've come to a scenario where you have a great opportunity for Hunter Henry. You have a great opportunity for Parker, for Aguilar, for Tyquan Thornton. We went over all of the options in that same segment. We went over all the options, all the people you can throw to. It's Jonnu Smith, it's Hunter Henry, Tyquan Thornton. You still can involve Ramondre Stevenson. Don't be shy. Just don't do it 32 times a game. It won't work.
Yeah.
Spread the ball. Spread the ball. That's the message. Also, fun fact, Mac Jones's real name is Michael McCorkle Jones. And I only wanted to write that because his middle name is McCorkle.
That's where the Mac comes from.
I know, but I love it. I really like Sparkle McCorkle. That's what I want. But reduce the Stevenson dependency. Keep attempting to throw the ball. Please do. The team looked good against the Vikings. Remember 3 weeks ago they faced the Vikings and they lost 33-26, but Mac Jones had 380 yards.
Right.
And Stevenson rushed for only like 40, but he also like caught 60 or 70 in the air, and it looked good because he spread the ball to everybody. Remember that? That was a good time, wasn't it? We're not doing that no more. For Arizona, like it's almost time to ship it in for them. As of right now, they have 1 less loss than the Rams.
Yeah.
That's not saying a lot. So Cardinals are quickly losing my interest. Like Kyler Murray is only, to me, a half step above Russell Wilson in the took a step back this year category. Just not the same quarterback from last year. Russell Wilson, obviously, he switched teams, switched offenses, has different tools, and they're playing. Kyler Murray has really none of those things, and he still took like this. They had offensive line problems and health issues, and I get that. You can run, like run. I don't know, man. I don't. That's all I got. I don't understand this team. These were at the beginning of the season. I said the 49ers and the Seahawks. The Seahawks, Geno Smith, the opposite end of the Russell Wilson trade. We don't really know what to expect, but man, coming close to the playoffs would be great, right? And San Francisco, we were like, Man, they got Trey Lance. It'd be great if Trey Lance could stay healthy and get these guys close to the playoffs. It should be, Rams and Cardinals. Rams were just in the Super Bowl. Cardinals look stacked just like they did. They were 8-0 last year. And then you get to week 6. What?
Yeah.
Now you're at week 13 going into 14 and everything's upside down. Like a huge, the most surprising division. This is one of the most surprising teams in the surprising division. At least you can say with the Rams, they've had health problems. They have a left tackle who's younger. They have a defense that's changing. They lost Cooper Kupp at point in the year. Now they're without Matthew Stafford. They have the same dang amount of wins as you right now. And you have Kyler Murray. You have James Conner. You have defensively, you have Budda Baker. Like you have so many non-new pieces that are there. DeAndre Hopkins is back. Man. Okay.
That sounds about right.
Start Hunter Henry, sit James Conner. You don't really have to sit him, but at least I want a part, fantasy-wise, I want a part of this team compared to the Broncos. I guess I'll give them that. But only in the sense that it's going to be Hopkins, Rondell Moore if he's playing a little bit. Hollywood Brown
is out.
If he's playing. I said if he's playing.
Well, he's definitively out.
Right. I said if he's playing. So in general.
Oh, in other, gotcha.
Hollywood Brown is still perfectly fine. You picked up Hollywood Brown I'm not going to keep going. Go ahead. Anything else from this one?
I mean, it's your point. Arizona, yeah, they have two, Marquise Brown is relatively close to an alpha wide receiver. DeAndre Hopkins obviously being significantly better. Without Rondell Moore, that really sucks. But if they had those 3 wide receivers, this would be a very different game, in my opinion, despite the fact that New England has a very good defense. Having 3 good wide receivers like that would make things tough to really shut that down, especially with Kyler being a running quarterback. Although, to your point, he has not been running as much. He's only had a couple of 70+ yard games, 100-yard game. Anyways,
he was the running for the first. We talked about it week 9. He was the running force for. He had a 33% of the team's rush yards the first 8 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, outside of 3 games, he's averaging 30 rushing yards per game. So
that shows you how much they weren't running the ball. Now it's definitely changed. James Conner is more involved again.
Right.
That's why I say he's going to have some carries here. It's just New England is good against the rush. They're a good defense. It's just
yeah, New England's weak spot being the tight end.
I can only imagine how Cardinals fans feel.
Yeah, right. I will also add that New England has struggled against running quarterbacks. So if Arizona takes note of that and actually tries to make that a part of their game plan, that should help a lot. But New England's defense should help keep them in this game. And if Mac Jones and the offensive game plan is what we've seen it can be, then this should be a pretty good game, at least in terms of Arizona's defense not being great and therefore New England actually putting up some points. But we'll see how that pans out.
Man, I'm just gonna let that one go.
Derek, you're having a rough night, man.
I'm gonna take the Patriots on this one. I don't understand. I had an existential crisis about the Broncos a week or 2 ago.
Yeah.
I've had a 4-week existential crisis about the Colts and all the stupidity I see all over the place. And now we're just, man. That's gonna do it for the Week 14 preview. Sweet mother of God. Video title on this one's gonna say Derek has a mental breakdown about the Cardinals. Amongst other things, because he can't speak or read. It's been a bad show for me, and they happen. Final part of this show, we're gonna go through our 5 fantasy flyers. They are worth 15 points on our host v host. To bring you up to date on the totals, which I said the wrong totals on Wednesday because math also is not something that I apparently finished in school. I have 170 and you have 159 points. So I have an 11-point lead after winning the 5 fantasy flyers last week. Didn't count the 10 points that we both got for having one of our players in the top 3 on our fantasy matchups that you won. Probably should have given you some points just for winning that, but I didn't. So sorry. You want to go with your 5 fantasy flyers or mine first?
Why don't you kick it off? I think I went first last time.
It's time for the 5 fantasy flyers. Hope you enjoyed that suspense right there. So my 5 flyers. Number 1, Elijah Moore. I'm going with Elijah Moore. I think I brought him up earlier in the show. Mike White's throwing. Buffalo is pretty good. They don't allow a lot of scoring, but I'm hoping that the Garrett Wilson will detract some attention from the Elijah Moore. So I'm going with Elijah Moore as number 1. Number 2, I'm going with Philip Dorsett. He has seen really good exposure when there's no Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins so far this season. I think he has 2 touchdowns when they were out. Chris Moore was also a consideration. I like Philip Dorsett just a little bit more in this. Chris Moore should be the I guess the attention guy. Trayvon Diggs, maybe, I don't know. Number 3 on this should be Amari Rodgers, I would think. That's a scary thought, but all of Houston against Dallas is a scary thought. So number 3, only reason I put this man as a flyer is because of the last 3 weeks. And specifically, there was a bye in there and also more of a flop. He had 2 catches for 11 yards, I think last week or week before last. There's a bye somewhere in there, but I'm going with Greg Dulcich. He is only rostered on 62% of leagues, which is close, but that's also in oh my God. In total, that includes Dynasty. I need to go to bed. Number 4, I'm going with Nick Westbrook-Akina. Titans probably should be throwing against the Jaguars a little more. Robert Woods has not been a big play guy all year. A little space there. So I like Nick Westbrook-Akina. And my last one, number 5, in a pace up spot versus the Steelers for the position, Devin Duvernay. Demarcus Robinson also was a little bit more flyer. He's definitely a flyer in this case. But I think mixing in a little bit, we've seen Duvernay, especially out of the backfield, have some rush capability. This is a good opportunity for him to potentially break out with some more rush, jet sweep type deal. And then, of course, if he catches a few passes, it makes him look good. So those are my 5 fantasy flyers. Also considered James Washington, but the snap count there, the holding him back, has removed him from my list. So it is time for your 5 fantasy flyers.
Alrighty. I'm gonna keep riding. Well, I don't think I've thrown him in, but I like Zonovan Knight. He's been doing pretty well, so I'm gonna go with him. This one I may regret if Walker plays, but I have Travis Homer. I did have James Cook. I probably well, anyways, Travis Homer. I also have a Jet, Corey Davis. I went with my hometown boys, Devontae Parker, and then this one, real true flyer here. Help me out here with the name, Chikoziem
Chigoziem Okonkwo.
Thank you. The tight end from the Tennessee Titans, the rookie tight end. That is my 5 flyers. I liked a lot of the names you had. You touched on Houston, Demarcus Robinson, you touched on. Greg Dortch, I'll throw out, filling in for Rondale Moore, Kendall Hinton, and then like we talked about, Matt Breida, Rashad White. I wouldn't really necessarily, I don't know if he qualifies as a flyer anymore, but he's a good name to know. What other tight ends? Evan Ingram.
Hunter Henry.
Yeah, Hunter. Oh, yes. I really like Hunter Henry. He almost made it in here. I went Parker instead.
Let's see. I do want to give him like another couple names, if possible.
Conklin, Bellinger.
Yeah, for the tight end spot specifically. Conklin and Bellinger, not horrible picks. Who's behind Hayden Hurst? There's a hole. A dart throw, but a hole.
Yeah, Wilcox and
Who didn't they bring in? Somebody? I thought there was somebody who they signed who would be perfect for this, and I don't know who it was.
they also have Asi from Devin Asi, who was on the Patriots, but I don't think that's who you were thinking of.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah,
didn't-
ASI, Devin Asi. So they have. Oh, Tanner Hudson. Is that who you're thinking of?
No, but he was on the Giants. I don't know if he's still there.
Those are the three that I see
Yeah.
for.
Oh, DJ Chark. DJ Chark.
Oh, DJ Chark. Yes, I like him as a. I thought we were still talking tight ends for Cincinnati. Yeah, I like DJ Chark.
All in general, all of them in general. Those are a few good names. So, that's gonna do it for episode 27 of the Fantasy Flyer. I need some sleep desperately after I put this video together and put it up there. On Wednesday show, still used to saying Tuesday. On Wednesday's show, we are going to get through as many of these games as we can in a somewhat quick manner, coherent but quick. And hopefully I'll be able to read, do math, spell, speak.
Operate as a normal human being.
Right. Hopefully I'll be able to do that on Wednesday. We're going to go over part 3 of 4 of the Fantasy Flyer Power Rankings. Top 5 quarterbacks, top 5 wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, and the bottom and top 5 teams. Based on, it'll basically be since the last time we did it, which was after week 9. So this will be the final mid-season installment. We will end up doing as we hit the playoffs. That will be part of another show at the after week 18. And there's a few more weeks until then. That'll probably be like the post New Year's show. Also, next Friday, the 23rd, when we do our show, it will be the Christmas Eve special. So stay tuned for that. You don't want to miss all the Christmas fun. There'll be more fun outlines on the video. We all get to wear Christmas hats. It'll be fun. So it's also going to be interesting because most of the games are played on Christmas Eve. So there aren't many games on Christmas Day. Christmas Day falls on a Sunday if you guys weren't sure of a calendar and how it worked. So I shouldn't say that to anyone because of how I've handled this show in its entirety. And I should just shut up. So anything else from you, Taylor? You want to say anything to the fans?
I don't think so. I think we covered a good amount of stuff there. I like our flyers. Start sits. Got some good stuff. So best of luck to everybody.
Wonderful. If your playoffs do start in week 14, it's rare, but it happens. Best of luck for your playoffs. If they start in week 15, hold on to your hats. Next Friday, we are going to play a special start sit fantasy playoffs version of the Fantasy Flyers. There we go. That's going to be tough. That's it for me. That's it for Taylor. As usual, we are going to sign out with good old-fashioned Bob Barker.
Bob Barker reminding you.
Take care, guys. Have a good weekend. Watch some football.
Peace out, y'all.
Goodbye, everybody.